Hey guys, this is Hannah with you, and I am sorry for the shakiness at this beginning stage. I am using a new device, and so sometimes it's hard to know exactly how it's going to look when you get it on here. Okay, so I wanted to get on today and just kind of chit chat since I haven't been on in a while, live at least. I thought this would be fun. So hold on, let me get over to the ClickKits page on my computer so I can see what you guys are doing and commenting, because otherwise I can't see what's going on. Hopefully the light isn't too weird. It's like one of those weird days today. So I thought today we could talk about layering in a traveler's notebook, since that is something that I hear a lot of people talk about in groups about how do you layer in your traveler's notebook, how do you create less bulk, do you want to create less bulk, sorry about all that noise. And really, I think this is a personal preference type of thing. Depending on how you like to scrap and how you like your albums to look, I think really depends on how bulky you want to make them. So I thought we could just kind of work on a spread real quick and just kind of talk through how I like to layer, and some things that I do to keep it less or more bulky depending on what I'm doing. This is the spread that I just did. I am sorry that there's a lot of extra wires and stuff over here on the side. When you go live, it shows a little bit more of the image than I'm used to. But so yeah, I'm gonna pull out my kit so that you can see what I'm working with here. I still kind of have it together. I do try to keep my stuff together a little bit. So one of the things that really makes layering in your traveler's notebook really easy is using things like vellum and stamps and rub-ons. These are things that really can help minimize the bulk of a notebook. As you can see, the spread that I did, this is going to be distracting, all this extra googly got here, all my stuff. This is why when I don't do live stuff, I can pretend that there's nothing around my desk. But anyway, so I'm sorry if that's kind of distracting. Thank you guys for joining me today. I'm Hannah, if you didn't know. I am one of the designers on ClickKits, and in the next term I will be on YouTube, on the YouTube team. When I first started, I actually was on the YouTube team, and then we kind of switched over to mostly all of us doing blog stuff. But so I'm working in this month's notebook. It says No Bad Days. These are exclusive. If you get the Traveler's Notebook kit, it comes with a notebook, which I really like that it comes with a notebook. As you can see, I already did some other stuff that is not ClickKits, and as you can see, I haven't adhered these down properly. So yay for not doing that right. But as you can see here, I do have quite a bit of bulk. I have these on pop dots too, and even this on the other side has dimension. I don't mind dimension. In fact, I usually just add stuff, and then when I feel like it's too bulky, now sometimes on the edges, right where it meets the binding, I will cut it and like add it to the other side. It just depends on how I want the spread to really look. if I think it's going to look more cohesive. And so sometimes this means that I will do a couple of spreads in a notebook and decide, you know what, this is really bulky. I can't really use it that much more. So I'm just going to go. A lot of times, and I didn't do it with this page, but a lot of times when it starts getting really bulky, I will take my page and just add some adhesive to it, and then I'll just fold it and go from there. So taking two pieces and just putting them together. It's really nice for a page like this where I'd already stapled on it, so you can't see the staple as much, though I can see right now that I'm gonna want to put something here. And so I think the first thing I want to do is use some stamps. I haven't really used any of these stamps, and I think that this will be a good fun way to start off this process of trying to add something to my page that isn't going to get really, I could essentially try to make a bulkless page. Now, if you follow me at all, you will know that's not really my style. So, but let's see what we do. So, I guess sorry about that. That took a second to get that off. So, I have not used this stamp. If you've never used a stamp on something, my best advice is to get a piece of paper that you have scraps. I think I'm gonna test it with this, but I think I want to actually put stays on, because I'm actually thinking about using some watercolors on it. And I'll just get out real quick some simple Prima watercolors. We have some, not this, I don't think we have the one that I have in here. I think these are just the tropicals, but I know that there are some in the store. So there also is some shimmer stuff still left, which I also like, but I think for this I'm just going to use some of these. It'll be nice and simple. So one thing to know, that this paper is not watercolor paper. It's not mixed media paper. So the more media you add to it, the more bulky and bleed through and all that kind of stuff. So that is something to keep in mind. So priming, real quick, we're going to prime this. And I'm going to actually get my... So I just like to use just a basic eraser, and I just run it through a little bit. I mean, you're really just trying to just wear it down. Also, I'll rub it on my pants a little. And then what I do is get out a stamp, ink, and I mean, you could use any color to try it out. I always stamp first when I'm first trying or testing out a new pad or stamp, because I want to make sure that it's going to give me a clean look. So here you can see it's really nice and clean. Now, this is a pigment ink, or no, it's a dye ink. It's a quick drying dye ink. It does have a little bit of bleed. So here's my watercolor brush. It has water in it. So I'll show you. If I just add it like this, that ink is going to come up. So I'm not going to necessarily use that. I mean, I could if I don't mind that it has that blue tone. Now this ink from One Canoe 2 is more of a blue tint of a black instead of like a plain crisp black. But yeah, I like it for some stuff. It does not work good for if you're gonna watercolor on it. But so I think what I'm gonna do is take my Stays On. Now my Stays On stinks as far as like it's getting really bad. So I'm probably not going to get a nice crisp image like I would want. But in a project like this, it's not actually as big of a deal. So I think what I want to do is, I think I'm just going to stamp over the top and kind of go like that. As you can see, it actually turned out pretty good. It's not too bad. So I'm thinking maybe taking like half of this and putting it here. And so I'm gonna take this. Now this side is gonna stamp a lot less even because I have stuff bulked up. That is something to think about when you are stamping in these. If you think that it's gonna turn out really crappy and you are a perfectionist and want to, or you just want to make sure that it's nice and crisp, you can always just use another piece of pattern paper or and do it that way and just stamp on something else and then add it to your project. Oops, as you can see, I kind of smudged it a little, and that was where the it was popped up. So I knew that was going to happen. I'm okay with that because I'm going to add some stuff. Now, when you're done with this, you do want to kind of clean it. Let's see, somewhere around here. I actually have a cleaner. I don't know where it is. I thought I knew where it is. I guess not. Hold on a second. So I like to use a stamp cleaner. I mean, you can use a baby wipe. Of course, I don't have any baby wipes because I don't know. Another thing that I will use sometimes to clean it off is just an alcohol wipe. It actually works out really well. You can get a lot of the black ink, and if you get it on your ink block, like I always do, you can wipe it off really good. So, and then you just use a little bit of, a lot of times I'll just re-stamp it off, make sure I kind of get it off. Now, if you thought that this would look really cool on your page, you could always just do a like mirror type of an image on there, and that would work out really well as well. And now I have goop on here. So a lot of times I will, while I'm in the middle of my project, just kind of use like a paper towel and then go from there. It's not going to hurt for it to sit on there. And in fact, the black, some inks will really leave color on your page. So, and I see my light is really good today, even though it's kind of dark out today. It's getting dark right now. So I'm gonna just take some colors and I'm just gonna add, I think I'm gonna do more of like a splatter. So let me see if I can find, I guess this one is the only one that has a lot of water in it. You would think that I would be a little bit more prepared, but no. So just gonna take some of my water from here. Always be careful when you're adding water near your projects so you don't get, actually I'm going to do it off screen. I don't want a Jen Scow moment. Did you guys see that? So Jen Scow was doing a video and she was adding splatters and she dropped like a half a bottle of ink from her bottle onto her layout, and you could hear. Okay, so also a lot of times when I do mixed media like this, I usually actually like to have a paper towel. I don't know where my paper towels are. I'm not gonna be all crazy about it right now, but it would have been smart of me to be prepared. But So I just added a little bit of water to my brush. I like to use, especially in a traveler's notebook, using a watercolor brush is really nice. So as you can see, I have some colors that I've already mixed. One thing that I think is also nice to do is to look in your kit and just see what kind of colors you are gravitating towards. Now, I don't have my picture out, so I have no idea really what I'm going to be documenting, but I am really liking a lot of these like purpley colors. So one thing that you could always do is mix a color that is on here. So I'm just gonna kind of get my head in here a little bit, so don't mind my head. But and as you can see, I have like in the tropical kit, and this is like besides the point really, but in the Prima Tropical kit, it has more pinks than reds. So definitely when you're mixing colors, remember that a red and a pink are gonna react differently. But you can get some really awesome colors by mixing them. And so here's a color that's really similar. And I think that sometimes it's nice when they're not quite the same. So I think what I want to do is kind of, well, I was thinking more that I didn't just want to watercolor, but I might have to. So one thing that you can always do is add more media, but you can't take it away. So just be really simple in making sure that you're not adding too much water. Sometimes that is nice when you don't have a watercolor brush because you might add less water to your project. I'm just going to go in and add a little bit of red for... Now, I'm not being really picky about how this is turning out. I just want to add a little bit of color because I want to use this as a layering technique. And when you're using something like watercolors and when you're using watercolors in with your on your spreads, right, you're gonna get a look that isn't gonna take up a lot of space on your page, and that can be really awesome when you're working in something like this, because you're not gonna end up you're gonna be able to use more of your pages, I guess, if that makes sense, right? So here's just me having some fun with this. I think I want to add, so sometimes when I can't get a blob that I want, and I'm trying to be really careful. So I also am thinking that I want to add a little bit of the pink. I have no idea. I want a little bit of that lighter color to tie in. So I'm just kind of splattering it. It's not, this is really not rocket science or anything. I'm just trying to add a little bit of something to make it pop. So we have two colors that are really similar. So I have a little bit of this pink color, and then I think I have gotten more off my page than I have on my page. But like I said, sometimes if I don't get enough of a color, I will come back in and just kind of try to add stuff. The only thing about doing this is that it's not going to be a perfect circle like you're going to get more with a blob, but you know. So there are some other like blues and stuff. So if you wanted to add another color, now would be a good time to do that. I'm kind of trying to see what color. Like, I kind of feel like it would be, I don't know. I don't really want to color all this in because I really don't want to add too much water. I actually kind of want it to be more like a splatter because it'll dry a lot quicker as well. But I do want a little bit of this blue to just kind of highlight. And as you can see, I'm just like flicking this. I think I'm just going to leave it like this and go from there. So this is wet, so I'm going to leave it open off to the side until it kind of dries. Now normally I would really rinse out my brush so that the next time I use it I don't end up with blue or purple stuff. I do try to keep my spot, so I wasn't thinking ahead of time, or I would have added my mixed media matte, but because I usually don't like to do a lot of media on just my plain desk, or you'll end up with a lot of media that makes your desk all funky. But hey, Megan. So I just sprayed a little bit of water on here just to kind of see if I can pull up a little bit of the color, because I see I got some purple over here. Of course, it helps if I spray with water. So this cleaning up while you're waiting for something to dry is a great thing. So as you can see, this color is really similar but not the same. So another thing that is in our kit that really makes for a nice layering piece and touch that doesn't have a lot of bulk is washi tape. This is a great place to use it. I'm just going to, I think I'm just going to add it here. I really do try not to overthink my spreads too much, because I think that's when you make it a lot more complicated. So I do like to have things go off the edge. So as you can see, I'm kind of starting to build, thinking about the edges, thinking about, do I want stuff going off the edges? Okay, so normally I would probably add a rub-on to this, but because it's wet, I don't want to add anything like that to it, because I think it will be a bit crazy. So I'm going to be doing a page with we got a new coffee maker, so I think I'm going to be printing that off. I don't have the picture except for a big one for my project life, so I'll show you what the picture is going to look like, but we're going to build it without the picture. And I know you're thinking, Hannah, you're crazy. Why are you doing this? Because it means that I'm complicating things a little bit more, right? But my media is still wet anyway, so this, for me, because I print at home, I don't want my ink to go floating, and it will if it gets wet. So this is what the picture is going to look like, but it's going to be a small one because I generally like to use like a 2.5 by 3 or a 3 by 3.5 size. That this size right here is 3 by 3.5, so that gives you a good idea of what it's going to look like. Okay, so I don't think I'm going to add any of this, but this one would look actually really cool, and maybe I will. Maybe we'll just do a test. So this could turn out really bad, and I'm okay with just chancing it and seeing what happens, right? I mean, but if you're someone who doesn't like that, go with what you know. If you know that wet stuff on dry stuff on wet stuff that you're trying to get stick might not work, don't do it. You know, there are definitely, you can always wait for it to dry. I am lazy. So in the package, there was a little thingy. I don't know where it is. I almost never know where it is, so I'm just going to use a pen. Really, you just need something kind of strong and sturdy to rub. Now, these rub-ons are actually pretty good. I've used quite a few of them already, and I've been enjoying them. One key with rub-ons is to use them right away, or you will have a tendency to not be able to use them because rub-ons really just don't have a good shelf life. And if you live anywhere with humidity or a fluctuation in temperatures, as you can see, I smudged, but that's okay. And I actually really like the way that this just kind of builds another layer. It's not very complicated. I actually really think, let's see. So let's see what is in there is a page in the paper pack that has all these little things, and I really liked this one, so I'm just going to kind of fussy cut. This is one thing that is really fun about using like a 6x6 pad. They're smaller. You can cut. I think I want to do, I kind of want this to stick out. So I think I'm going to do this, and I'm going to staple this just like that. It has a gold staple. These are mini staples, so there you go. I think I also am going to take this from the exclusives and I think I'm just gonna go like this. I really like to do like tearing or something, especially if I know I'm not going to add a whole lot of layers, and I really don't want to add too much. So, and you guys will see, I'm seriously going to make a really, really simple layout, which is kind of not really, well, it is like me, but it's not like me. So I'm going to layer it up like that, and I'm actually going to try to stick this underneath here a little bit. I think it'll work. I'm just going to let that hang off a little bit. Now, if you're thinking that the tape is going to show, you can always use like a liquid adhesive too. I just like, if I can use my tape runner, it means less messiness for me, because with the ATG you can kind of, if it shows up on the corners, you can just kind of roll it a little, if that makes sense. Plus, whatever is sticking underneath here, it'll kind of stick underneath there. So I really like that black and white. It kind of mixes in with this black and white. So another thing to think about is, do I have any other black and white elements in that, the exclusives, which there was another one. There is this round one. So, let's see. How do I want to do this? I think I want to stick this down here, and I think I'm going to stick it over top of that spot that kind of got smudged. Now, I could put this on a pop dot, but I think I'm going to try to keep this spread not so dimensional, just because I did do some dimension on the page before, and so I'm going to try to keep it not so crazy. I think I'm going to use that, And let's see. I don't know. I really like this too. I have no idea where I'm going to put my picture. I might put it like somewhere over here. See, and this is where if you are thinking you're not sure what size picture you want, doing it kind of like this will allow you to build some layers, and then figure out, let's see, so I think I want one more piece of paper to build. I am going to build some layers, so I think I want something light. So I guess the question is, do I want to add something like, where is it? Like this, because I have some blue in there, which I'm actually thinking that might look really nice. I could also use the floral pattern, or I could use the butterflies, but I think I'm going to save those just for now, because I don't think that's really going to go that well with my coffee theme. And I think I might use this too. I really am loving these. Yeah, I'm gonna add one more staple. And this is the fun thing about doing like stuff with staples and stuff. You can add some kind of dimension without really adding much, and you can add just another layer of something. Okay, so I don't have my picture, but we're gonna get a picture that is similar to the size that I want to use, and just kind of use that as a guide, because there's nothing like, so I think this is about the kind of size that I want, and I actually wouldn't mind having it spread out. So I might make the picture a little bit bigger so I can cut it in half. And I've done this a lot, and this is where knowing, I think, so in order to finish this last bit, I actually really need my picture. So I think what we'll do is, let's see if I can do this without taking too much time, because I don't want to take too much time here. And I know that I have my picture not too far away. There it is. And come on. Okay, maybe it's not going to let me do it. Sorry for just the hand, guys. This is what happens when you don't think about, let's see. There we go. Okay, let's print. And I think I'm going to print this in, let's see, in about a 3x4 size. It might be a little bit bigger than that. And so we're going to print that off, and then, so I'm thinking I want to layer, like use this right behind the photo, because it'll bring out the blues that are kind of hidden in my spread. And then I'll use these two to just kind of layer behind and tuck. Like I said, when you're doing a layout and it gets kind of bulky and you're doing stuff in the crease of it, you just got to know that either it's going to be bulky or you're not going to get much out of your thing. Now, another thing is I will probably end up doing the same thing that I did to the other thing, because as you can see, I did get a little bleed through some of these. So that is something to know, that if you're afraid that it's going to bleed through, if you don't have watercolor paper or mixed media paper, you're not going to end up with something that isn't, it's most likely going to bleed through. Ah! So my color is like completely off. I ran out of the color. I don't know. I might be able to make it work for now at least, but so you can get a good idea of what it's going to look like. So this is actually a little bit bigger than 3x4, but I'm okay with that. So I need a blade for right now. I'm just gonna. Now I do print off at home like 95% of the time. I just like the convenience of it. It really is nothing. Yeah, nothing more than I like the convenience of it. Okay, so I think I'm going to tilt it just a little. Maybe, like I could tuck it in a little bit like this, too, and have like this half kind of coming off. So one thing that I do like to do is just kind of go in with my pen, and I always like to kind of give it, I don't like to put it straight up and down. Just to me, that doesn't create enough lines that are fun. So, but that is a personal preference. So I'm just going to go in and make 2 lines, and then what I'm going to do is go in with my thing. You could just use scissors too, but I don't trust my scissor ability. And so I'm just going to do it like this. Now, I could have built my layers and then did it, but I'm almost positive that I will screw this up. So what I'm going to do is put this on my paper like this. Now, remember that we have some of this tucked in, or that's the plan, right? So I don't want to have too much space on the other side, and I'm just going to leave a small, super small little line in between, and this is where I can just use some scissors. When you're layering, if you know you're going to be tucking things in, you want to really try to keep these layers really nice and slim, because that's going to create a lot of bulk in that spot, right? And you're probably not going to see it that much. So if it's not perfectly straight, it's most likely not going to be as big of a deal. And like, so here's what this is how it's going to look. So I'm lining it up, just kind of making sure that it's looking right. And then I think what I want to do is tuck in this like this. So what I will do is then I'll start building my layers on top of this, and this is where when I cut, I will just have to be really careful. This is definitely not rocket science, but you definitely want to be aware that when you cut, you're going to lose a little bit of what you had. So I guess the question is, how much of this do I want to show? And I think I want something like this. So I'm just going to cut. I'm going to lose these. going to cut it all the way across. And I'm pretty much just cutting right on this line. There's not much left. And so we're going to do this. I'm going to add this here. My dogs. I don't know if you guys can hear them, but I can. They're really loud. So I'm thinking what I want is just a little bit of this to kind of pop out here. So I actually think I might cut it like here, because I don't really want a lot of this to show. So I'm just gonna put some glue here, and I try not to use too much glue because I'm probably gonna have to rearrange this, and if I add too much glue, then it's just gonna look all funky. So, because don't forget, we still have to cut, right? We still have to cut this. So, there we go. Sorry about that. Oh my goodness. All the neighborhood dogs are howling after the sirens. Okay, let's get this finished, because I'm almost done, guys. So, like I said, I knew I was going to have to add more glue to this because almost always when you're doing something like this, just remember when you're gluing it, it might not look quite the same. So we're going to tuck this side in first because we know that this side is the side that was right along here. Now this is going to create, quite a bit of bulk. So if you're not one that likes this kind of bulk, oh shoot. See, so this is definitely not lined up with the patterns, which you could leave it, or, and this is why not using too much glue at first is kind of a nice thing until you kind of get it figured out of how it's going to line up. And that's okay. It doesn't, you know, it's not going to be perfect. So, and then this is when I go back in and I just add like another strip. This actually would have looked really cute with, maybe I can find it real quick. There it is. So we got stuff, and I have a doily. I might use part of this. All right, so I'm just going to add a couple of things to finish this off. So one thing I like to do when I'm adding like some of these smaller pieces is think about color and what is where, and just kind of color match that way. I think I'm going to add one more, and I think I want to add it like down here to just kind of create some triangles in here. I really don't want to go crazy because I already have quite a bit of stuff, but I do want to bring a little bit of gold to this side because I don't have that. So I'm going to add this heart here, and I think that is it. I think I'm just going to leave it as one. Sometimes I like to mirror what I have on the other thing. Hey, Miriam! I know I didn't notice when you said hey. So this is it. Sometimes I will add a title. A lot of times I find that when I'm working in my Traveler's Notebook, I don't feel like I need to add a title as much, which, you know, it's like a preference thing, right? And let me tell you guys, I absolutely love these little, I wasn't sure if I was going to like these little squares, to tell you the truth, and I absolutely love them. I've been using them up like crazy. They're really fun elements to add to your projects. I'm sorry about this light. The sun is coming back out. But, so I think what I'm going to do is just add a little bit of glue there so that this doesn't stick up too much. I don't mind if it sticks out a little bit. Actually, you know what? I need another heart or something. Or, I know what I can do. I needed something over there. So sometimes this happens when I'm going to do my journaling. I realize, oh, I need something else. Now, if I thought about it ahead of time, I could have cut this out to be, I think I'm going to stick it like that and just kind of have it go there. I wish I had some, let's see, I could probably use, so these are some of the stuff from the store that I bought recently. Yeah. Sometimes I like to, I actually also got these little wood pieces, which are awesome and amazing, but we're not going to use it. So, I think I would have liked to have added a heart here, but I think that'll be too much. So I think we're just going to do a medium size piece. Let's see. Maybe over here. And then I really want like something pink, I think. So, see, this is the one thing about when you keep going though. But you know, sometimes you just need to add a little bit something else, right? I wish I had purple. I probably do somewhere in my stash, but we're going to leave it. So we're going to add one more here, and I think I'm going to add it down here. It'll just kind of give something mirror there. A lot of times when I'm doing something in a Traveler's Notebook, I like to just add 2 enamel dots together. I find that that's enough for me to not be all crazy. Okay, so I'm not sure of the date, so I'll probably just stamp the date here because that seems like a really good spot to add it. And I actually think I want to just add a little bit of tape there so it doesn't come up. I don't mind if it sticks up a little bit, but I don't want it flipping up because it's just held by that. So now I'm just going to do my journaling real quick. And this is the pen that came in the kit, and I actually really like it. It's a really thin tip, but it flows really nicely. So it looks really nice in these Traveler's notebooks. I hate that when you realize that you don't have enough space forward. Now this is where planning ahead of time would make the journaling look better, but that's not my style, so I'm just not going to worry about it. If that's something that bothers you, definitely, take the time that you need to make it look the way that you want it to look. So that's the one thing that I will say is if you want it to be more cohesive to your liking, take the time to make it flow the way that you want it to flow, because it's your books. You got to look at it, and if you don't like it, if it doesn't flow for you, then it, like, yeah, you got to do it. Do what you love, right? You got to make it look the way that you like it. So that's my spiel on all of the layering and stuff. So do what feels comfortable, and if you want to break out of that rut of not knowing, start off with something simple like adding layers that don't add dimension, and then you can always bulk up things later. Okay. So lately I've been adding hearts to my journaling. I don't know why. It's just something I've been doing. So, yeah. Just gonna keep going with it because it's working. So here is my spread, and just a little bit of chit-chatting about layering and just having fun. I think the key is to have fun when you're doing something like this, because life is short. I will say that if you're gonna add stuff to the corner, to the spot, right in the middle of where it crosses, just know that anything that you put on your photos could like stick and stuff, and it is going to make your binding a lot thicker. So as you can see, this is what 3 highlighter stickers. I really gotta glue those down better. But anyway, I probably need to go in and use some stitching, but that's not gonna happen. So this is what 3 spreads in my book looks like. I probably will actually only do like 1 or so more because it's gonna be bulky. And you know what? Next month I'm going to get a new notebook, and so I'm okay with it not being all the way full. If you need to pull out pages, don't be afraid to do that as well. Just remember that any book that has staples in it is not going to hold as well. So also one thing, if you're worried about it not being sturdy enough, you could always add your own stitching to the binding to make it less likely to fall apart, because I have had notebooks fall apart because there was a lot of bulk and it just kind of ripped up. So just know that that is a possibility, but if you don't want it to be too bulky, then don't bulk it up. And like I said, I did a couple of tips to keep it pretty flat. I mean, as you can see, besides the fact that I added it to the the binding or the crease, other than that, it really isn't that. It's mostly flat, so I don't know how well you guys can see it, but so that's kind of what it looks like. It's pretty flat. Yeah. So that is it for today. Thank you guys for joining me today, and I hope that you guys have a great and wonderful Friday afternoon. Bye.